Hello all and welcome back to the Pick and Whistle for another episode of Tales from Azeroth. Come grab a drink and relax as I go through some stories and moments that you can hopefully relate to. And today's topic is all about classes within WoW and more specifically, unlike last week, it's the complete opposite. It's about PvE, so player versus environment. We're going to be going over the positive and negatives of each class, their strengths, their benefits, and kind of give them a tier score at the end in terms of how good they are in leveling in general in all of the sort of environments that you would associate PvE with. So raiding, dungeons, and just leveling yourself. But let's get straight into it. First class, like last week, we're going to start with the Mage. Now the Mage is my class. It's got quite a lot of positives, to be honest with you. It's AoE potential. The AoE potential is amazing. First level 60 in WoW Classic was a mage because he AoE farmed, and AoE farm is the most efficient because you take, say, 5 mobs on average and you just AoE them down. That's it. It's a lot of XP. It's quicker than questing, running back and forth, etc. So it's a very good source and consistent, steady income of XP. You also have some nice survivability with shields if you're going into Frost, which you're most likely going to if you're AoE farming as well. You have constant crowd control. With the Frost Novas, you can run away, you can polymorph and run, you can polymorph a target of yourself while AoEing. There's many different forms of crowd control that you can utilise to your benefit whilst leveling as a mage. But this comes at a cost because you need to know how to utilise them. Now, some people aren't as advanced in this sort of category. Some people won't necessarily know a couple steps ahead. Say you're AoE farming and something attacks you mid AoE farm. Not many people know, okay, I need to do this and then I need to do that and then I can just get back to normal AoE farming these mobs. So in a situation like that, you would immediately polymorph and then you'd look to Frost Nova everything, then get back into the Blizzard, something like that. So you need to have a step, or you need to be on the ball when it comes to your CC as a mage. You need to know what you're going to do and what the mob will do. You need to know the mob sort of patterns, if that makes sense. And let's face it, a big positive of the Mage is the free food and water that you get throughout leveling. You don't need to spend a copper on anything. The only thing that you need to spend a copper on for your food and water is to actually learn the food and water spell. That's it. After that, it's just free water for days. You're a vending machine at that point. You accept their life and you move on. But the only negative I can really think about with a mage is, apart from obviously being a couple steps ahead and knowing what you would do in each situation, that's just constant sort of practice, to be honest. That's a lot of being in them situations yourself, dying, and then knowing what you should have done instead and then applying it later on. That's what that kind of equates to. But a negative is certainly that mages are squishy. They are a cloth class, they are clothy, and their physical damage reduction is nothing. It's about, not even 20%, I'd say about 15% physical damage reduction. So you get bonked really hard. You get hit around the head, and it's just going to absolutely slap you and put you down a notch, honestly. That's the only sort of negativity that I can find with the mage. Again, the other is just sort of learning your kind of rotation, how your spells interact, what the best one to use is, etc. And then, like I said, that comes with time and practice. The next one we'll go on to is the complete opposite. You got a warrior. Now, with a warrior, they're great tanks. They're the best tanks in Classic by far. You always need them in dungeon groups, you need them in raid groups, you need them everywhere. They only need food when leveling, but most things for a warrior are on the negativity side, from my point of view anyway. Because from what I've experienced, I'm leveling like a low level-ish warrior at the moment. You need to eat after most fights. And that just seems very infuriating because you're a warrior. You're meant to be this sort of rough and like really hardcore sort of, warrior. You get in there, you slap some people about, you absolutely bowl them over, they get out of your way, stuff like that. But you just have to eat after every fight. You just finish killing like a little boar, and then it's like, hold on, I just need my bread. Hold on. Please don't attack me, little Noel. I didn't mean to, annoy you, Murloc. Sorry. But it's certainly a negative, but again, there is that potential later on where you can cleave a couple of mobs. You have a couple big, very big cooldowns, like 30-minute cooldowns, where you could actually just go crazy on like 5 or 6 mobs. Even so, it's a stretch, like popping all of your cooldowns on that sort of many mobs. That is a very big stretch because you might die. They might hit, they might have crushing blow, they might crit you, they might do many different things. But there is always that potential, like later on in the levels when you've got a load of talents and stuff, that you can level a bit faster, I guess. Now, another negative part. Now, this will be a general negative for all melee classes. You probably know what it's going to be. Weapon skill. Every time you find a different weapon, you level up that weapon skill. So, if you're an orc, you will be gifted with an axe at the very start. Now that's really good because axe specialization is a orc racial. It's a racial, so your axe skill is already increased by 5. I think it's +5 or something. But when you finally get a sword or something that is better stats, it'll be around level 20 because you don't get like whirlwind axe until 30, like late 30s, maybe 40. But when you get to like around level 20, there might be a very decent sword that you pick up. Now you've got to learn that sword skill, that weapon skill, and then you've got to hit something, or a better way of saying it is you've got to keep missing something with the weapon skill in order to level up your weapon skill. And obviously the more levels you get, the more weapon skill that you have. So at 60 is a maximum weapon skill of 300. So if you were starting from 1, you'd have to level it up about 250 times before you start, getting some good hits in there, which can be a lot of effort, to say the least. Now, this is a general thing for all melee classes, but warriors less so, or more so, sorry, because warriors like slow weapons, like really big slow weapons to sort of deal the most damage in one hit kind of thing, whereas rogues are like daggers. If you're stabbing people every second with 2 daggers, you're going to be leveling up your dagger skill a lot quicker than you're leveling up an axe skill that every 3 seconds you're swinging it, you're getting up 1 level, if that makes any sense. So there are different, like, this negativity can impact some classes a lot more, but it impacts the warrior mostly. Now with rogue, going on to rogue, you have stealth, as always, quality thing, because if you need just like a collect quest inside a long cave, you just stealth through all of the mobs, you don't need to deal with them, pick up the quest, stealth out, hand it in, nice and easy. Whereas other classes may have to fight their way through the cave, and by the time that you get to the item, you have to fight your way back out of the cave because if everything's respawned, and there's just a lot to sort of... There's a lot to say about stealth. It's so good. It gets you out of so many situations. You can hide from so many things. It is absolutely perfect. You come back to the CC with rogues again for PvE. You have a lot that can crowd control. You have a sap, which will... it's not disorientate. It will incapacitate the target for around 40 seconds. This can break after any length of time, I might add. You have blind, which is a 10-second disorientate. You have gouge, which is a 5-second disorientate, where you can bandage up and get some stuff in before like you fight again. You have cheap shot, which is a stun. You have kidney shot, which is a stun. The CC is never ending with a rogue. You can pull a lot of stuff out of the bag with that CC during PvE. Most of it is used for gouge and then the bandage, pretty much. With rogue leveling, as you get higher level, you get some nice cleave damage. So cleave damage is hitting the target next to your current target, pretty much. Now this is with Blade Flurry, so you'll be able to pull 2-3 mobs, Blade Flurry, and there's a little bit extra boost. But again, this is a 3-minute cooldown, Blade Flurry, so it's very sort of slow in terms of rogue leveling from what I've found. Actually no, we got one more positive, Vanish. If you're ever about to die, you vanish and run away. It's that simple. You don't die, you don't lose any durability loss. You just need to eat and go and fight again. You don't need a long graveyard run, you don't need anything. Just vanish, run away, eat, come back. Nice and easy. Now, with the negativity, it's kind of the same as Mage. They are quite squishy, so they do get hit for quite a bit of physical damage, and most things in Classic are physical damage when leveling. And even if it isn't physical damage, it's a caster damage. And caster damage ignores all armor, so that doesn't really matter. That just affects everyone, really, more like warriors and paladins than anyone else. Pretty much that's it for Rogue. They are very squishy, but they have so much utility to make up for that like squishiness that it is very good. But again, Rogue is a very high skill, very, very high skill cap class. And I would very much suggest a Rogue is not your your starter class, to be honest with you. Talking about starter classes, I'm not trying to offend anyone here, but Hunters are very, very reliable as starter classes. They have the range damage, they have melee damage, they have a pet at level 10, they can kite mobs to oblivion, they can kite world bosses into cities, they can do everything pretty much, apart from heal. And their CC's kind of lacking a bit, but they have, their pet is the biggest positive here, because their pet will just guide them through leveling. Since level 10, their pet will just guide them through leveling, especially if you're going Beast Mastery level. Your pet will just ruin everything that stands in its way, and all you have to do is throw him some lean wolf meat or something every now and again to keep him happy. It is quality. Now the negative about Hunter is not so much damage or squishiness, it's more about housekeeping, believe it or not. So the negative with Hunter is more about making sure you've got the amount of arrows that you need to shoot your bow, or the amount of pellets that you need to shoot your gun. It's about feeding your pet constantly so he doesn't get unhappy and abandon you. It's about training your pet new spells, which you have to put your pet in the stables, go out and train a new pet that knows a new spell, do a couple kills with that pet, and then you have to abandon that pet, go back to the stables, get out your old pet, and then you train your old pet that new ability, teaching an old dog new tricks, almost. But the negative part of Hunter is the house sort of, it's the house cleanliness. You know what I mean with that. It's the dirty work with it. It's not so much about I can one-shot this and this is my weakness in PvE. It's very much you are very good in PvE as long as you have arrows and you can feed your pet and your pet is trained up. The housekeeping sort of stuff. That's the word I was looking for, by the way, 30 seconds ago. But moving on, we're going to Paladins. Now Paladins, like PvP, have very much the same in PvE, because Paladins have heals, bubbles, they're very tanky, they're very simple, to be honest, if you want to level. But the simplicity is also a negative because it is so boring. Now, I don't want to offend anyone with saying how boring like a paladin is or whatever, I personally find it boring myself. I play a mage, I'm very much immobile, I'm very much big crits, stuff like that, big shatter crits. A paladin leveling is literally, and this is end game as well, this is level 60, but you put on a seal and then you just use judgment and you just hit. You just melee the target. That's it. Nothing else. That is your damage. You press a seal, you press judgment, and then you bonk something. And if you get low, you press heal. It seems very groggy. There's the word. It seems very groggy in my opinion in terms of the paladin leveling experience. But again, it just feels like there's no interaction. That is the negative part of paladin. They are so good at healing and just constant damage. But the negative part is I will probably, like myself, I would fall asleep when leveling. It is very good for starters, don't get me wrong, because you have that heal and it sort of lets you learn the game, lets you learn everything else within the game, apart from just like learning all of these different spells and how they interact as well. With mage, you're learning everything else. You're learning about the community, hearthstones, selling, professions, training your spells, etc. So it's a very good starter class, I'd say, paladin for the most part. Moving on to priests. Now, priests are very much the same as paladin. They can heal. They can heal. Kind of the same as paladin. They can heal. They have 1 talent and dot damage. Now, if you spec right, you can actually go through quite a few mobs without having to drink, because there is a talent called Spirit Tap, where every time you get a killing blow, your spirit is increased by 100%, and spirit increases your mana regen when out of combat, and in combat actually. So you can go multiple mobs without having to drink. But saying that, the best way to level a priest is through wands. Now, wands, it's good damage because you can specialize into wands. I'm pretty sure you can increase its damage by quite a significant amount because it's like 5 talent points, I'm pretty sure. But with wands, and with it being sort of their best damage supply, it is kind of like the paladins. It is just sort of boring and sort of like, it's very groggy. It like strudges on almost. So the priest is very good because you've got so many heals, so many shields. You can, if spec right, just go through many different mobs with damage over time damage, like Shadow War Pain. There's another. No, Shadow War Pain is the only one. But Shadow War Pain, you can spec into it. If you're a undead, you have Devour and Plague, which is another damage over time. So there's many different things that you can look out for there. But with Warlock, like PvP, are insane. They have their pet that can tank, the Voidwalker. You have Life Tap, which transfers health into mana, and then you can drain life on the next mob that your pet is tanking to get that health back. This means that you could possibly go leveling without having to drink ever. And it would actually still be quite efficient, like drink or eat, and it will still be quite efficient, which is absolutely amazing in like my opinion, because whenever I was leveling, after 2 or 3 mobs, I would have to have a drink, make more water, etc. But with Warlock, you can literally just regen mana nice and easily, and you regen health quicker than you regen mana, from my experience anyway. So at lower levels, you just regen mana, and then your health shoots up a bit. Like, it's ridiculous. Now, the negative part of this is during lower levels, Warlocks are kind of squishy because their pets aren't as good at keeping aggro and tankiness and stuff. And you don't really come into your own as a Warlock until like level, I'd say about 40 plus. That's when you start to get a lot tanky, you get a lot more curses, you get a lot more Shadow Bolt damage, you get a lot more utility out of the class with regards to your pets as well. But you also have to do a little bit of housekeeping, because you have to buy your Voidwalker, your Succubus, your Fell Hunter, your Imp, all these grimoires, and these grimoires are how they rank up their spells to improve them. So there is a little bit of housekeeping there, and it does cost you a little bit on the side, so just bear that in mind. Now with druids, again, they are speed. With cat form, you can actually get 30% speed increase with a couple talents, and that's before you even get travel form. So you're still very faster than everyone else. You have your own heals, you can become tanky, you can do many different things. Again, you are the most hybrid class in the game. But the negative part is that there aren't really negatives. You're just very average at everything. So yes, you're very fast at doing stuff, you're very efficient, but in terms of killing speed, you're quite slow. In terms of tanking stuff, you're kind of there. In terms of healing, it can be very good, but it's not too slow and it's not too fast. But the downside to Druid is there's only one good leveling spec, really, if you want that sort of averageness. Whereas if you want the caster problem, which is mana, you'd go with balance talents, and balance leads you into like Boomkin, which is Starfire, Wrath, Moonfire, and you're drinking pretty much after every mob. I know because I was a Boomkin. I am a Boomkin. I have a level 60 Boomkin ult. But whereas if you're feral, you don't use any mana, you're using energy. You're a rogue, so to speak. So you kill a mob, you come out of cat form, you heal, go back in cat form and kill. And by the time that you've done that, your mana would have regened after the next mob that you killed. So there's that sort of average pace, if that makes sense. You've almost got like a schedule to follow and like a structure to follow after every kill, before every kill, etc. So that's really nice, to be honest. Now shamans, again, I cannot speak for shamans as I don't necessarily play a shaman myself. So this is kind of what I have an idea on. But they're kind of tanky because they wear mail. I'm pretty sure it's like hunters. They wear leather at the start and then they can go into mail. Totems are definitely a positive because you have totems that increase your strength, increase mana regen, some that even taunt, I'm pretty sure. And the melee spec, which is enhancement, is obviously, I think, now don't quote me on this, but I think it's very mana, like low on mana, so it's not as mana intensive as everything else. So you're getting a few mobs in before you have to drink and stuff. Therefore, you're spending less gold on drinks. You're getting more XP per like time you sit like in between each drink, etc. Stuff like that. Now, again, this leads to only one decent leveling spec from my point of view. I don't know, so don't quote me on this. But one leveling spec, which is enhancement, and then you have, if you go into elemental, which is the caster spec again, I kind of see it as going Moonkin for druids. So it's very mana intensive. It might not be. I might be completely wrong on that regard. But I think that is my view on shamans pretty much. But in terms of tier list, if you're going from a new player's perspective, so someone who's just bought the game, if you're looking for the best class to pick as a starter class, S tier would definitely be Hunter, Paladin, or I'd say Hunter or Paladin. Yeah, I don't think there would be any others, to be honest. Certainly Hunter or Paladin. Paladin being super, like S tier if you're brand new to the game, I'd say. A tier, I would definitely go with a priest, like a shaman and a warlock. With the B tier, definitely like a mage, mage druid, and probably mage druid. Yeah, probably a warlock. Warlock, if I've said, I can't even remember if I said warlock or not. I might have put warlock in A tier, but I think C tier definitely would be like rogue, hunter, anything that requires kind of constant eating after one mob. and it needs that little bit of knowledge in order to like play around the NPCs. Because if you're a warrior and you just charge into a group, you're gonna die. So you kind of need that knowledge of, I shouldn't do that, I need to at least drag this one away, etc. But again, there are many different positives and negatives depending on how you look at it. I'm losing my voice, sorry, right at the end as well. But there are many different ways, like I said, you can look at it. I would definitely say Hunter and Paladin are S tier in terms of like new players. If you are very skilled, I would kind of flip that tier list around. I really would, because the more skilled players know how to utilise that class to the best of its ability, pretty much. But thank you all very much for tuning in this week. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you all next time. Thank you all for listening. Goodbye.